7 for 26, 27%. If I told you this number belonged to Nikola Jokic in a do-or-die playoff matchup, you would probably call me completely crazy. But that is exactly the nightmare that just became reality in Game 3. We are talking about a player who makes the absolute impossible look effortless every single night. The Joker is supposed to be the smartest guy on the floor at all times. He reads NBA defenses like a supercomputer processing data. He usually shoots with such insane efficiency that missing 2 shots in a row feels like a glitch in the Matrix. Yet against the Minnesota Timberwolves, something broke. He looked incredibly exhausted. He looked genuinely defeated. The Denver Nuggets lost 96 to 113, and their unstoppable MVP just shot the absolute worst percentage of his entire playoff career. This is a guy who basically sleeps his way to a 30-point triple-double on most nights. So when you see him walking up the court looking drained and missing the soft-touch shots he usually makes blindfolded, you have to stop and ask a massive question. Was this just a bizarre, bad shooting night for the best basketball player in the world? Or did the Timberwolves actually crack the ultimate code to destroy the Denver Nuggets system? To understand how an MVP can be neutralized so brutally, we have to look much deeper than the basic box score. We need to step right into the middle of the perfect trap Minnesota just built. Everything actually started falling apart before the opening tip even happened. You see, basketball is a game of delicate ecosystems, and the Denver ecosystem took a massive hit when Aaron Gordon was ruled out with a left calf strain right before the game. Losing Gordon did not just take away a premium defensive machine from Denver. It literally clipped Jokic of his wings. You have to understand what Gordon means to this specific offense. He is not just a role player. He is the ultimate safety valve for everything Jokic wants to do. He is the physical force who battles in the paint for crucial offensive rebounds. He lives in the dunker spot. He is the constant lob threat that keeps opposing defenses completely honest whenever they even think about sending a double team at the Joker. Furthermore, Gordon usually takes the absolute toughest physical assignments on defense. He wrestles with the heavyweights so Jokic can play free safety and orchestrate the transition offense. Without Gordon on the floor, the entire geometry of the court completely changed. The spacing was ruined. The gravity shifted. Suddenly, Jokic had to carry an enormous defensive burden while also carrying the entire offense against the biggest team in the league. The stakes right now are unbelievably high. The Nuggets are down 1-2 in a brutal 7-game series. The defending champions are standing right on the edge of a cliff. The modern dynasty that everyone thought was inevitable is suddenly facing a shocking early collapse. This is not just a standard playoff loss where a team just misses some open jumpers. This feels like an existential threat to the entire Denver franchise. The aura of invincibility is completely gone. You can literally feel the panic setting in for Nuggets Nation and basketball fans everywhere. And honestly, if you are watching this right now and feeling that exact same tension about whether Jokic and Denver can actually survive this nightmare scenario, hit that subscribe button right now, because we are going to keep breaking down every single tactical angle of this crazy series as it unfolds. Because as bad as the Gordon injury is, his absence is really only half the story. The truly terrifying part is what happened when the ball actually tipped off. The scary truth is exactly how Minnesota systematically dissected and crushed the Nuggets' offensive machine right there on the floor. Look at the exact way Minnesota plays defense against him. It is essentially a medieval torture device designed specifically for one man. You have Karl Anthony Towns, whose sole mission is to physically punish Jokic on every single possession. Towns uses his massive frame to pound into the chest of the MVP over and over again. He is essentially playing the role of a heavyweight boxer aiming for brutal body blows, just to drain the stamina of his opponent. But beating the muscle of Towns is only the first layer of this terrifying nightmare. Minnesota uses a brilliant sweeping concept with Rudy Gobert. Gobert does not guard Jokic directly on the perimeter or at the top of the key. Instead, he just lurks in the paint like a terrifying shadow. Whenever Jokic manages to pivot past the physical bruising of Towns, he immediately runs into the enormous wingspan of Gobert waiting right at the rim. It is a brilliant two-tiered trap. You beat the muscle only to immediately meet the monster. This dual layer of physical and spatial pressure creates absolute chaos for a player who relies entirely on angles and rhythm. The proof is right there in the shocking shooting numbers. Jokic missed 19 shots in Game 3. Most of those were not forced desperation threes with the shot clock expiring. They were the signature soft-touch floaters and little push shots around the rim that he normally hits with his eyes closed. We are talking about the highest percentage shots, for arguably the most efficient volume scorer in basketball history. A man who usually leads the league in advanced metrics like true shooting percentage was suddenly throwing up absolute bricks. But when you have two 7-foot giants constantly bumping your hips and swiping at your vision, that delicate shooting touch completely disappears. The shooting mechanics get rushed. The release point drops just a tiny fraction of an inch. and suddenly the basketball just clanks violently off the front iron. But the Timberwolves did not stop with these half-court defensive traps. They actually weaponized the pace of the game against the Nuggets. Minnesota ran the floor like Olympic track stars. They forced the action in transition and made Jokic sprint from baseline to baseline on every single sequence. For a massive center carrying a huge offensive load without his primary front-court partner, this relentless speed is absolutely lethal. The physical toll was compounding with every single trip up the floor. You could literally see his legs getting heavier and heavier by the minute. Jokic is taking a brutal physical beating. But the absolute worst part is not the bruises on his arms or his heavy breathing in the third quarter. The truly terrifying aspect is the severe psychological damage this defensive strategy is actively causing. Minnesota did not just lock down the physical body of the defending champion. They actually managed to hack his incredible mind. The real reason Jokic collapsed was not just about Gobert contesting his shots in the paint. By completely smothering Jamal Murray and the rest of the Denver role players, the Wolves forced the most unselfish basketball genius on the planet to play an ugly and desperate game of hero ball. This is the ultimate twist in the disaster of Game 3. Look closely at the paradox in the box score. Jokic took 26 field goal attempts. For almost any other superstar in the league, shooting 26 times is a totally normal Tuesday night. But for the Joker, taking 26 shots means his offensive system is fundamentally broken. He is a maestro who wants to dissect defenses with brilliant passes. He wants to manipulate the defenders with his eyes and feed his cutters for easy layups. But he simply could not do that because his main running mate was completely frozen on the perimeter. Jamal Murray shot an abysmal 5 for 17 from the floor. He finished with just 16 points and looked completely overwhelmed by the extreme length and aggression of the Minnesota perimeter defenders. When your star point guard cannot buy a single bucket and your entire team is shooting a miserable 25% from the three-point line, the passing window's completely close. The beautiful Denver motion offense quickly devolves into desperate isolation plays. Minnesota wanted exactly this scenario to unfold. They wanted Jokic to feel completely isolated on an island, surrounded by hostile defenders. They wanted him to look around the court and realize that nobody else was going to step up and save the team. So he forced the issue. He tried to shoot his way out of the suffocating trap because the passing lanes were either jammed by the long arms of Gobert or they were ending in badly missed wide-open jumpers by his struggling teammates. Are you starting to see how unbelievably brilliant this defensive game plan actually is? Drop a quick comment below right now and tell me if you think this dual big man strategy is the exact blueprint the rest of the NBA needs to finally stop the Joker. Because what Minnesota exposed in this game goes way beyond just great physical defense. They exposed a severe mental breaking point. The most alarming detail of this entire playoff game was not the poor shooting percentage or the lack of assists. It was the extremely uncharacteristic silence from the Serbian star. Normally, Jokic is constantly communicating with everyone on the floor. He is always yelling out defensive coverages. He is arguing fiercely with the referees over missed foul calls. He is waving his hands and directing traffic like an angry orchestra conductor. But as the fourth quarter rolled around in this blowout loss, he just went totally quiet. The competitive fire in his eyes was entirely replaced by a blank and exhausted stare. His plus-minus rating plummeted to the absolute bottom of the entire Nuggets roster. The advanced numbers literally suggest that the team actually played much worse when their best player was standing on the hardwood. His fighting spirit looked completely broken by the isolation and the relentless physicality of the matchup. When a genius basketball brain is forced to overwork inside a completely exhausted body, the result is a performance that head coach Michael Malone accurately called an absolute embarrassment to the franchise. The mental fatigue was so visible that you could practically feel the frustration radiating through your television screen. But how exactly did this extreme mental exhaustion manifest into actual blown plays and terrible decisions on the court? To see the undeniable evidence of this total collapse, we have to look directly at the game tape and watch the exact moments where the Denver machine finally snapped in half. Let us rewind the tape right now and look at the actual film from the fourth quarter of Game 3. Look at the incredibly heavy steps Jokic takes in this specific sequence down the stretch. There is no more complaining to the referees. There are no more pointing fingers to push his teammates into the right spots. He was truly running on completely empty. If you want absolute visual proof of this total systemic breakdown, just watch how Minnesota defends this high pick and roll. Jokic catches the ball at the free throw line. Instantly, he is met by the massive chest of Karl Towns. Towns does not even try to strip the ball. He just absorbs the contact and pushes Jokic entirely off his preferred spot. As Jokic tries to pivot out of the physical pressure, the Timberwolves send a vicious double team right at his blind spot. The basketball intelligence of Jokic immediately kicks in. He makes the absolute perfect read. He fires a laser pass to the weak side corner for a wide-open three-pointer. Normally, this is an automatic bucket for the Nuggets, but this time the shot completely bricks off the side of the backboard. The spacing was totally ruined, and the shooter rushed the release. This specific sequence happened over and over again throughout the entire second half. Now look at another glaring example of the brutal physical toll this game took on him. Watch this live ball turnover by Jamal Murray on the perimeter. Minnesota immediately leaks out for a blazing fast break. Usually, you see Jokic hustling back to at least contest the passing lane or secure the defensive rebound to stop the bleeding. But in this specific clip, he barely crosses half court. He is just jogging with his head down, while the Timberwolves get a spectacular uncontested dunk on the exact opposite end of the floor. This is not a lack of effort from a lazy player. This is total physical and mental exhaustion. The fatigue was so immense that he simply could not command his heavy legs to sprint back on defense. He had absolutely nothing left in the tank. This connects directly back to that shocking number we talked about at the very beginning of this video. That abysmal 27% shooting from the field was not a random accident or a string of bad luck. It was the highly calculated result of a brilliant and malicious defensive scheme that actively wore down both his physical body and his fighting spirit over 48 grueling minutes. The Minnesota defense basically handed him an unsolvable puzzle while simultaneously taking away all of his very best tools. For those of you who really study the psychology of the game and look beyond the box score, the most telling detail was actually not the missed shots. It was his deeply concerning body language during the late timeouts. If you watch the Denver bench closely on a normal night, Jokic usually sits there actively drawing up plays on the whiteboard with the coaching staff. He is always engaged and highly vocal. But late in Game 3, he was just staring blankly at the hardwood floor. He completely detached from the team huddle. His eyes looked hollow. The Timberwolves did not just beat him on the scoreboard. They temporarily broke his supreme basketball spirit by making him feel totally isolated on the court. So the biggest question right now is not whether Minnesota is a genuinely great defensive team. The real question is whether the Denver dynasty is actually going to end right here on this very floor. Nikola Jokic literally hit a massive brick wall named the Minnesota Timberwolves. The combination of relentless transition speed, the layered physical defense of Towns and Gobert, and the shocking shooting slump of Jamal Murray created a perfect storm of destruction for the defending champions. This playoff game revealed a clear tactical blueprint for exactly how to make the most unstoppable offensive player in the world look entirely human and completely vulnerable. But history always proves that underestimating the pure intelligence of the Joker is a fatal mistake. He is a basketball supercomputer, and he now has brutal game tape to study and process. The ultimate solution for Game 4 is crystal clear. Denver desperately needs Aaron Gordon to return from that calf injury to restore their structural balance and physical presence in the paint. And Jamal Murray absolutely must find his offensive rhythm to take the immense scoring pressure off his superstar center. If the Denver role players cannot hit their wide-open shots, Jokic will be trapped on that lonely island all over again, and this entire playoff series will officially be over in a heartbeat. Game 4 is going to be the ultimate test of true championship DNA for this Denver squad. Do you think Nikola Jokic will bounce back and solve this terrifying defensive puzzle, or has the Nuggets dynasty officially come to a tragic and sudden end? Let me know your exact series prediction down in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button right now to join our basketball community for more deep NBA film breakdowns, and I will see you in the very next video.